Happy Friday to you, and welcome to this Friday edition of America Talks Live.
Yeah, big Friday show, a lot going on. So today is the final day of Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Today, groups like the American Bar Association are going to speak about the character of Brett Kavanaugh, why they recommended him, gave him a well-qualified rating. So that's the kind of testimony we're going to hear today. Let's take a look at what's happening right now at the hearing. So in just a moment there, you're going to be seeing a live shot. There it is of the hearing. Like I said, they're having various experts testify today. You see professors, you're going to see representatives from legal associations, people Kavanaugh's worked with. They're going to be talking about, in the abstract, why he would make an effective Supreme Court justice or why not. But he seems to be generally and universally well regarded by legal experts, scholars, and colleagues on both sides of the aisle. You have Democrats, well-known liberal law professors saying, politics aside, Brett Kavanaugh's a great judge.
Yeah, I heard people say A++++, and I'm, wow.
And a well-qualified by the American Bar. Now, The Hill is reporting that more than 200 protesters have been removed from that hearing so far. These protests look organized. We're seeing reports that money was being handed to these protesters while they were online. And if you notice what they're doing, it's very regimented. One will stand up, protest, be removed by Capitol Police. Another will stand up, protest, be removed by Capitol Police. So this was a well-organized, well-orchestrated protest, and everything about the hearing is our top story this hour.
So as we've mentioned in the past, there's been a lot of focus in the mainstream media on some of the theatrics from senators, specifically Democratic senators like, oh, I don't know, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris. We're going to talk about some of that a bit later. But for now, we just want to focus on the important aspects of the hearing, like, I don't know, Kavanaugh's views on topics like abortion, free speech, and privacy.
Right. So during the confirmation hearing yesterday, Nebraska's Republican Senator Ben Sasse asked Kavanaugh about hate speech and the First Amendment. Here was Judge Kavanaugh's response.
I think the principle of free speech that the framers put into the Constitution encompassed the idea that there would be, as the Supreme Court has subsequently said, in a variety of cases, unpopular ideas that would be expressed, and that, as we said earlier, it's important for individual liberty to have the ability to express your thoughts and your words, and it's important for societal development, the development of America, for the people to be able to express their ideas so that we can improve over time. And a lot of the ideas we hold dear were unpopular, some of them not so long ago, and we developed those ideas over time. In part, free speech helps us build a better America.
And that's where we want to welcome in former federal prosecutor Larry Klayman. He's also the founder of Freedom Watch. As always, good to have you on the program. Now, Larry, you've been very critical, I would say, of Judge Kavanaugh, in particular when it comes to his stance on surveillance. Have you heard anything from him that changed your mind, perhaps, or do you still feel the same way about him?
As I said, Miranda, at this point, I want to see him confirmed, because if we don't get him through now, what we're going to get is a Democrat obstruction, and it'll be even worse later. But he was not the best pick for President Trump. And yesterday, at the end of the hearing, the ranking minority member of the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee, Patrick Leahy, confronted Judge Kavanaugh on the issue of privacy, of mass surveillance without probable cause, that a crime's being committed or that there's communications or conspiracies with terrorists. And he raised the case of Klayman versus Obama. That was the case, of course, that got 2 preliminary injunctions enjoining this kind of illegal, unconstitutional act. Well, what happened was that the USA Freedom Act then kicked in because Congress amended the law trying to close loopholes and prevent this, but we know the intelligence agencies have continued to do it. So Leahy asked Judge Kavanaugh, and I had asked everyone in that committee to ask these questions. I had written to them, what's his position? And he said, well, you know, I might not have done the same thing now because there's a Supreme Court case, Carpenter versus United States, which says that you can't get cell phone records from private providers like Verizon or AT&T or whatever. And that was a cop-out because he never needed to write the decision in the first place. And the case that he relied upon, a lower court case, wasn't applicable in any event. The lower court judge that ruled for us had ruled on the basis of other cases that said that this mass surveillance was illegal and unconstitutional under the Fourth Amendment. So the White House sent out a fact sheet immediately because they know that Judge Kavanaugh is vulnerable on this issue. It'll still be confirmed. But I'm at least glad that we accomplished something here because we got Kavanaugh to back off. We got him to say that now there's a new Supreme Court case. So therefore, what I said before, I didn't have that to draw from at the time. He suggested he'd rule differently. So I think we accomplished our purpose. And now he's committed to following Carpenter versus United States, which would, by extension, rule that this mass surveillance is unconstitutional and illegal.
So really, he said what you wanted him to say.
Right. He seems to have validated. Well, Larry, let me ask you this. I want to get to an exchange between Kavanaugh and Arizona Senator Jeff Flake in just a moment. But can you just give us the backstory for the audience that might not be familiar with it on your case, Klayman v. Obama?
Well, I brought it right after Edward Snowden made his revelations. And I made myself the guinea pig because I'm a lawyer. I can't communicate with my clients and preserve the attorney-client privilege if it's being surveilled by the CIA, NSA, and FBI. So that was the basis of it. And I brought in a couple clients that also had experiences being surveilled, hacked, or whatever. It was clear it was happening by the NSA. One of our clients, Charlie Strange, his son was an NSA cryptologist who died in Extortion 17, the biggest loss of life in the Afghan war, which remains unexplained. Military's never explained the reasons for that.
And just for the audience, Larry, not to interrupt, Extortion 17 was the Chinook helicopter that went down with a contingent of Navy SEALs and various intelligence operatives shot down over Afghanistan.
Right. You can read all about it on our website at freedomwatchusa.org. But to make the long story short, John, is that was the case that gave rise to this landmark opinion. The ACLU didn't do it. Nobody else did it. We did it. And we got a very good judge at the time, Judge Richard Leon, who said that this was almost Orwellian. And that's what Kavanaugh tried to undercut. Even his liberal judges on the panel that took this up.
But Larry, what was the crux, in a couple of sentences, what was the crux, what were you suing? What was the crux, the elevator pitch, if you can give the audience, of Klayman v. Obama? Not in legalese, but just so they understand the context.
Well, the context is that my telephone communications with my clients were being intercepted by the intel agencies and the FBI without any showing that we were committing a crime or communicating with terrorists.
Okay.
That can't be permitted in a free society.
So there was this moment where Judge Kavanaugh discussed privacy with Arizona Senator Jeff Flake. Let's listen.
All of our data, financial transactions, your whole life is in the hands of a data company, and the government gets that. Your privacy is very well affected.
Okay, so Larry, that was, of course, that exchange between Kavanaugh and Jeff Flake was in reference to the Carpenter case that you just referenced, where you, I'm assuming you watched all of Kavanaugh's testimony, your opinion on what he said.
Well, what Flake said or what Kavanaugh said?
Kavanaugh.
Oh, Kavanaugh, it was a cop-out, but it was a good cop-out. We backed him up against the wall. He said, well, you know, I ruled this way before, but I won't rule that way probably again because of the Supreme Court precedent, which says you can't get cell phone records from Verizon and other companies. So, I mean, all's well that ends well in some ways, but it shows you the character of Judge Kavanaugh. I believe that he was currying favor with the conservative establishment Republican elite in Washington, D.C. Of course, this started under President George W. Bush, this warrantless surveillance. And most of the Republicans, the irony is that liberals supported me more than the conservatives on this, and I'm a conservative. But the reality is that he curried favor by issuing this decision he never had to write. He just did it because he was positioning himself to be nominated for the Supreme Court. And the president's gotten bad advice. He's reauthorized Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which lets the government to get anything that's being communicated overseas. This has been used against the president. This was used by the Obama administration to unmask communications of the president and his advisors. So president needs to get better advice here. And I hope that this whole saga that's occurred in front of the Judiciary Committee this week will educate him. I hope he will pay attention to that. It's to his best interest that he does.
So his evolution, as you describe it, if you will, on this issue, does that bring you any comfort at all, or are you just not buying it? Because I kind of get the impression like you were happy to hear it, but you're not, still don't have confidence in him.
No, here's the thing that really I thought it was, theater of the absurd fantasy land or whatever. I mean, we heard a lot of testimony by Judge Kavanaugh this week do not influence their decision. Now, that's totally false. Everybody knows that. And they're highly political animals. So, and Kavanaugh is, and even though at this point I want to see him confirmed just to get the thing over with, he's the best of the worst, as I've said, of what Trump could have picked. The reality is these judges wear politics on their sleeve, left and right, and I can predict with almost 100-degree certainty the result I'm going to get in a case based upon which judge, so-called randomly, is assigned to the case. And I don't think it's always random, believe me.
So real quickly, because we're running out of time, we have to go to a commercial, but you said everyone wears their politics on their sleeves. So let me ask you, liberal, conservative? What is
Both.
He's both. So he's an independent.
Is Kavanaugh liberal or conservative?
Yeah.
Well, he claims he's conservative, but I don't know how you're conservative when he tries to dismiss the fact that Roe v. Wade is an illegal decision. Even Alan Dershowitz, the leftist professor from Harvard, says there was no basis in the Constitution for Roe v. Wade. But he curried favor this week. He wants to get confirmed. Okay, I understand that. Now let's hope that he has a different frame of mind when he takes the bench this October on the U.S. Supreme Court. But I doubt it. There's still politicians. Everyone on there is a politician. They are not God, okay, and they're not above the law, but they do think they are. And I add one other thing.
So, whoa, you didn't answer the question, though. Yay or nay? Is he a conservative, yes or no?
He's somewhere in between a conservative and a politician.
On a scale of 1 to 10?
7.
On the conservative scale, 10 being a conservative, what would it be?
7. Lucky 7.
Lucky 7, all right.
Not too bad.
Larry Klayman, thank you so much. We got to run.
Good to see you, Larry. 7. Better than I thought.
Yeah. He's pretty.
Next time we bring Larry on, I want to know who the top of his list was. I want to know who he wanted to see.
I do too. We should have asked him.
I forgot to ask him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, next time.
All right, the August jobs report is out, and it beat all of the estimates. We're going to tell you just how many more jobs were added than expected last month when we come back. Stick with us.